instead of saying, well, you like put on a headset and you shoot some stuff. It's pretty cool. Okay, well, that's kind of a boring...
You sold me.
Yeah.
I'm Russ.
And I'm Danny.
And this is the Memory Makers Podcast.
The show focused on helping you create amazing customer experiences and make more memories.
Memory Makers Podcast.
Going with Creed.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, Kirk Cousins has been using it as his pregame jam, and they've been getting down with it, so I figured it was quasi-topical.
There you go. I was not expecting that, and it actually worked out. Like the syllables and the rhythm worked perfectly.
Hey, better to be lucky than good sometimes.
How long have you been holding that one in your back pocket?
About 6 seconds ago.
So it was very spontaneous.
Yes.
I love it.
How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. I'm here in the studio.
Hey-yo.
And
Super
why are we here together?
Well, we've been circling the troops up. It's just that time of year where we're trying to do future planning and the IAPA season and all of that stuff. And we've just had such good success by bringing in multiple departments and the teams from out of the office into one space and making sure that we're looking at, hey, what's working, what's not, what do we need to be better at, what are some things that we want to be really dialed in on, how do we sharpen some of the tools. And so it's been a great couple of days having you in and having Scott in and others, and so I'm just been jazzed to get to see your shining face, friend.
Shining face. Does that mean I'm too sweaty? Is that what you mean?
No, I mean Mike needs to be better about getting you some base and some foundation. Okay. That's not on you. So
it's not on you. It sounds like it's on me, but
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna insult you, but it's somebody else's fault.
I didn't mean shiny in the physical sense. I meant like your aura.
Ooh, the metaphorical sense.
Yes.
Okay. And once again, we are off the rails.
Quick and fast. That's how we do it, and then we rein it right back in. So today, what I was hoping we could talk about was making sense of virtual reality. It's one that we have a heavy stake in. We both work with the AAMA with things like the standardization committee and the board and stuff like that, but we also do it on the CDub side with a lot of product development and really helping folks because, it's easy for us to be super excited about it and live in it from one filter set, but especially over the last, 5 years that we've been living in this world of VR, also being very cognizant of the fact that there are good decisions and bad decisions depending on your context, your size, your operations. And so it's not a one-size-fits-all piece when it comes to VR. It's easy to fall in love with the technology, but as we've said, don't do it for the sake of the technology. Like it's a way to, get a better and more high-fidelity experience that folks can enjoy. And so what I thought we would do is give a little bit of context of what we're seeing in the landscape these days. What are some good decision filters for you to be able to use as an operator so that way you can make a correct selection and you're not either outpunting your coverage or biting off more than you can chew, and you're going to have something that's actually going to translate for your guests. And so that's the goal and the intent. And I think we've got some good things to dive into here.
One thing I'd like to add to that, you just mentioned the right selection. And what we mean by that is not saying this product is the right selection. It's understanding your operations, your goals, your abilities, and finding the right fit for you, which could be one, it could be multiples, and it might be none, right? It's just trying to find the path that makes sense for you. We want to give you the tools to make the most sense of that.
100%. And so, we're always big fans of, hey, contextual background info that helps kind of understand where we got to the landscape today. And so why don't we start with that, Danny? Hit us up with a little bit of, what has been going on with VR in location-based venues so that way we can have a better understanding of why the choices are what they are today.
So let's rewind the clocks a little bit to the first VR surge that happened in the 90s, and it was like a bottle rocket. It got really exciting, and then it just died out immediately. And there was a couple things that caused that. And number one is that the cost was very prohibitive for operators because the amount of money it would take to be able to put one of those attractions into your space was very high. Compound that with the fact that the throughput and capacity of those were extremely low. And then compound that one more time by the fact that the technology was very limited at the time.
Yeah.
So that created a bad recipe.
Yeah.
If we're being honest, if we think about the variables of an attraction.
There were issues that stemmed from that, I guess you could say.
But it died out, and it made a resurgence back in 2018-ish, right? And when that really started exploding again in location-based entertainment. And for the first couple of years, we had that question of like, well, is this going to be doomed to repeat the same pattern as we did in the 90s? And we were very bullish on VR, and we still are, and that has turned out to be the right bet. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one is that the level of technology and immersion and what can be done is significantly better. It's smaller, it's more compact, it's more easy to manage for guests. It's at a much lower price point. The experience is better. There are more game options. Just across the board, there's a lot of things that improve the viability of VR within a location-based entertainment venue. And part of the reason, and if you've been paying attention to some of the things that we do from an educational standpoint, you've been watching this podcast, we talk about VR a fair bit. And part of the reason we do this is because we feel that it is going to be a big portion for this foreseeable future of an entertainment mix. And we like to educate people because very often VR can be lumped into this one category that's a monolith of VR either works or it doesn't, or I had one bad experience with that thing that I tried, so all VR sucks. And I want to help give operators the tools to realize there's a lot of nuance. There's different categories, which we'll talk about in a minute. And even within those categories, there's tons of different product options. And it is not one monolith of like VR or not VR. There's a lot of nuance, and we want to help people have the tools to understand the right path forward for them.
Absolutely. Well, side note, I need to use the word monolith more. So I love that. Thank you for that little gift.
You're welcome. So let's see how many times you can drop that in the episode today.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah,
well, I shouldn't have done that.
No,
that was a bad mistake.
No, we're not going to
rewind.
That. Yeah.
Erase.
Undo button. So when we look at any attraction, right, we start big and then we start dialing in. So the first thing that I wanted to make sure that we looked at was the VR customer alignment. And sometimes, whether it's go-karts or it's a dark ride or it's laser tag or it's whatever attraction that you're looking at, who are you trying to attract with this piece? Are you trying to go after more birthday party, action? Are you trying to go after something for a specific age or demographic? Is this something where, where are we actually looking to move the needle for? Are we trying to enhance a group that we're already serving well, but we know that this is really relevant for them? And so at first, it's easy to think, well, man, VR is for these people. And what we found is, and that there is not a monolith of customer type for where it's just one thing. We really see a nice split across age groups, men and women, and income ranges. And so by looking at some of these numbers and things that we see with those customer alignments, that then helps us start to be a little bit better at filtering out relevant VR options that will speak to them or, move that needle a little bit better. And so when you look at things like kids versus adults when it comes to VR, we're seeing Gen Z, millennials, and Gen X all have a healthy portion of the makeup of the age ranges that folks are playing. You've even got some folks that are younger, and you've even got some folks that are older. It's not by any means that baby boomers or Gen Alpha are not participating in this, but the healthy portion of the bell curve is a nice spread across those Gen Z, millennials, and Gen Xers. And then you look at men versus women playing VR, where you actually see a pretty even split of 55% men, 45% women that are doing VR experiences. And so there can be things that are relevant and exciting for anyone. And then income ranges as well. This doesn't have to be some huge price point piece that then you're going to be charging, $30 for an experience on. There's a variety of different types and styles of VR attractions that are good for what type of operations that you're setting up. But you even see low income makes up about 30% of the split, middle income makes up about 31%, and high income makes up about 39%, which makes sense a little bit when you look at it, of higher income areas having higher value attractions and things like that it skews. But to still see that relatively evenly distributed across the board, it is an encouraging factor of, okay, my market is not going to inherently preclude me from being able to offer this, but I still need to be considerate of who my audience is that I'm going after, so that way I can capitalize on that and have something that's really going to speak to my core group that I'm trying to get with this. And so the next thing that I think that, when we talk about these operational best practices is, okay, who am I trying to attract with this, like we've been talking about, and what does that mean? How do we start to bucket out, what's going to be a good thing for what I'm looking for, what's going to be a not so good thing that I'm looking for? And so, Danny, share with us a little bit of some of the styles of VR that we're seeing, some of the experiences or the product, all of those kind of 3 areas. So that way then we can, say, okay, if I'm going after this group and I want it to be, this type of an experience because I think it's going to translate to that group, like what are some of those frameworks that we can use?
Start by thinking about what type of VR you're best suited to operate. And that is based upon the space that you have, the amount of labor you have available, the amount of effort that you want to put into operating it. And that's part of the equation that we have to understand. And so, when we think about there are different types of VR, and we've talked about this, the VR categories in a previous episode, and it's becoming more nuanced and the lines between them are blurring, but let's keep it super, super simple and say you've got arcade, you've got a hybrid attraction, which is larger than an arcade but requires staff but not like a huge full-on attraction, and then you've got free roam, which is much more the full-on attraction. And you can look at each of those things and say, okay, what are we best suited to operate? If you know that based upon the staff that you have both in quantity as well as the quality of staff and what they're capable of doing, I just don't think we're going to be able to consistently hit on the execution of a full free roam attraction, and I'm a little bit worried about the technology, and there's things that just don't feel like the right fit. Okay, well maybe you start looking at the other end of the spectrum and you look at arcade, because there's a lot of either non-staffed or very low staff arcade pieces out there that you can put into your arcade mix, very easy to operate. They can do very well in the arcade, and that's maybe where you start. And maybe sometime down the line you can look into growing into a different kind of VR. But be very self-aware in what your strengths are and what your strengths are not, and don't try to put a square peg in a round hole. And one more thing that we've hit on many times before, but I'll say it again, if you're going to buy a VR attraction that requires staff, but you don't plan on staffing it, do not buy it, because it will not make money if you have a see us at the front counter to play or anything like that. It's going to hurt your overall revenue potential.
Big time. I had a conversation with Jack and Chris from Stars and Strikes in the past, and they had done some things like Hologate with us, and then we're moving away from that model because in conversations with them, they're like, we like the product, but what we're finding is from an operational standpoint, where our staffing levels are, and insert a couple of other variables here. It was like, for us, it makes sense to look at the arcade model because it's less taxing on the staffing side, when we need to be able to have this just be a little bit less, a little bit more hands off from where we're at and what our needs are or our abilities are at the moment. And it wasn't, clearly Jack and Chris and Stars and Strikes, like all of their locations and their team members do a great job, but it was them being self-sufficient of where we are right now. We're just not best suited to be running this. And so we want to get our hands around it. We want to, take a step back, look at some things like Rabbids or Kongs or VR Agent or those unattended VR pieces in an arcade or quasi unattended, they always take a little more TLC. So that was a really good self-aware choice that then they were making, because now they can enjoy the benefits of having some VR offerings, but they don't feel like they're overextended and have less friction that went along with it.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have someone like Andretti's Indoor Cardigan Games, and they are very bullish on VR. They have arcade, they have hybrid, they have free roam that they're adding, every different category, and they're leaning into that heavily because they understand they're suited to staff that well, and they know their goals and they know how they operate, and so it makes sense for them, right? Yeah. It's not going to be one answer that it's the right size, right fit for everybody. You have to kind of be understanding of your own operational best practices. And the last piece I'll hit on here, so we talked about what type of VR are you best suited to operate, what are the different categories, and then even within those categories, let's look at arcade as an example. Within arcade, you've got driver, shooter, explorer. You have these different kinds of VR experiences that live underneath that arcade umbrella, and finding out, okay, well, I know based upon the kind of mix that we already have in our arcade and maybe the type of audience that comes in and the age demographic that we want to hit, there are different things that you can look at within that realm.
Well, and it would be something, hey, if we know that, I want to increase some things that are more friendly for women or young kids to play, I'm going to avoid some of the shooter games because that's just a little bit too much gore. There's some folks where it's, like a Frankie's Fun Park where it's like, hey, I just want to run zombies because that is what is printing money for us and that's what our market is asking for, versus someone else who's like, oh no, I need a little bit more of an artistic, creative, exploratory type of an experience. Again, it's looking at what is the actual gameplay of the attraction, not even just the model style that it is, so that way we can find something that's actually going to ring the bell for the right people. And I think that when you then look at that, one of the pieces of what are we set up to operate, another aspect of that is how are we charging for these VR pieces? If we're doing arcade-focused VR, and that's going to be your typical a la carte kind of pricing and things, but if we start getting into things like the hybrid models or the small or large attraction style VR, how are we currently selling other attractions, and what's the right way that we can do VR? Do we have to charge for it completely different from what we've done other things, and is that going to preclude us from doing it? And what we've found is that there are actually a variety of ways that you can use hybrid and large-scale attraction VR. We have clients that use all of these three different models, and so you can sell those a la carte. So, hey, this is going to be, we want to follow this dollar per minute revenue generation piece. So if it's a 15-minute experience, we want to be able to charge at least $15 for that. If it's a 2-minute experience on an arcade piece, we want to be able to charge $2 to $3 for something like that. And so a la carte works great. It's just a little bit harder from an operational perspective to have like scheduling and capacity and things like that go with it. You're going to have to staff it, without knowing necessarily how busy that attraction is going to be. And it just depends on, do we have the flexibility with our staffing levels to be able to do that right now? Then you look at some things where we see Brian and Connie Smith doing at Alley Cats, where they're doing mini bundling. So they have our Limitless VR. And those games, if you were selling that a la carte, it'd be, okay, set this game for 5 minutes, and then you'll have a brief and a debrief on either end of it, typically eight minutes in total. So we're going to charge $8 to $10 for that. Alley Cats looked at that and said, okay, but I want to actually look at creating a little bit of a growing experience for folks. And so what they did, and as we were working with them, was, hey, we're going to actually do a 20-minute session or a 15-minute session, depending on what time of week it is, where we're going to have 3 mini games that are back to back to back. That way the guests can play it the first time, get oriented around the space, play it a second time, be able to utilize some more of the features and functions at a higher level, and then play it a third time to then be able to really have that sophisticated piece. And so that way it's that easy to learn but hard to master kind of rule that is so ubiquitous in our world. And so they are looking at, okay, great, I can still charge $20 for this if I want to be able to justify this, because now they're getting a longer experience overall, but they're also having a higher level of satisfaction. I don't have to worry about, multiple games being upsold. It made it, a one-time ask is getting them higher than what you would be for your a la carte kind of stuff. And so it's an easier lift for their front counter folks as well as their operational staff, because they're not debriefing and divesting in between as many sessions. So it just helps the trains run on time a little smoother for them. And then we have folks like that do premium packages, right? Like everything's just a different style of bundles. You can do package A, package B, package C, and you get more things as you add. And for the folks that really do that more high volume, like mass throughput with those, this is something that's super attractive, because you can still have it be a smaller game length, right? Like a 2.5 minute or a 3 minute game. So it's a 5 minute experience overall. But we can add this, and now we know, hey, by having this and bumper cars in our top tier package, we can see more of those upsells take place, because there's more offered in that bundle, in that package, and we're getting enough people through to justify that, right? We're making it up in volume by having an easy upsell opportunity. And so we've seen all 3 of these work really well with those different styles of VR. And it's encouraging just from the fact of, I don't have to change what we're already doing from an operation and costing and pricing and bundling standpoint to be able to have this fit within our ecosystem. We can find a way to tailor the game lengths, stack the experiences up, or look at, hey, if we know that this is really going to be increasing our people's dwell time, their per cap spend, all of that, and it's going to be something that they come back a lot more frequently than maybe what other people do, then we can make that up over time, and it's a cool way to be able to leverage it. So it's really been a fun exercise to really see each of these different pricing models hold true for VR across the different types.
And so you've got to this point where now you know your attraction, you know what you're going to charge, and now you're at a point where it's time to train the staff. And that's what we'll hit on in this last section is training. I think it's important when you add any attraction, any piece that you do, whether it's VR or not, to allow your staff to play it a bunch, to let them understand, fully comprehend the game and the nuances and why it's exciting. Because as part of your training, if it's fun and exciting and engaging and they get to play it, they become more knowledgeable about the product, they're excited about it, and an enthusiastic employee about any particular attraction is much more likely to be able to sell that to people. Or when a customer asks questions about what that is, instead of saying, well, you like put on a headset and you shoot some stuff, it's pretty cool. Okay, well, that's kind of a boring...
You sold me.
Yeah. It's like VR, you like walk around and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I think the biggest thing is then gamifying that training, right? Making it something where you're doing some tournaments and some kind of built-in competition and team building with your own staff to get fluent with this piece. It's not that I have to read the manual and understand, okay, I know I'm going to go to page 37 of this and then follow this, flow chart of stuff. No, I want our team members to have a high literacy rate of what this experience is, just like with laser tag or anything else. And they get that by doing the reps of playing it, and we can get them to have those reps by, hey, we're going to do an in-house competition or tournament where we're going to do $15 to the winner or $50 for the winner and $25 for second and $10 for third. Like, those are some fun gamified pieces that anybody who's going through updated training practices is just grabbing onto with both hands. And it's so impactful because they're exposed to things not only from the player side, but then also the operating side. So if something does come up where you're like, oh, what's this mean? What's this little message? Oh, I've seen this dozens of times now. All I have to do is, restart that controller real quick and then boom, they're back in, as opposed to, oh no, stop, I haven't seen this before, I need to go find someone. It's that same pain point where if you're at a restaurant and you're like, oh, excuse me, can I get a side of this? And they're like, oh, I'm gonna have to go talk to a manager because it's not included, kind of stuff. It's like, get rid of that noise and just get a little bit more comfortable by playing and doing the experience on both sides of operating it and playing it. And like I mentioned before, the internal team building and trash talking and fun that can kind of come with all of that stuff will also then help you realize, okay, if we are staffing this one directly, like, here are my 3 all-stars that are really good at the game, really passionate about what it is and because they enjoy it so much. And then they're going to be able to carnival bark and engage our customers at a higher level to create that cooler experience.
Yeah, I like what you were saying about getting a lot of reps under their belt to be able to see that stuff, because repetition is the motor of mastery.
Yes, sir.
And so having those repetitions, training is not a one-time event and then it's over and then you move on. It's continual, always, forever. Yeah. Especially because we have young staff that needs to be reinforced, and you may have staff turnover, new people joining your team. And so when we take a step back and kind of recap everything that we talked about today, first we hit on a little bit of the history of VR, how we got to where we are, understanding your audiences, the breakdown of that audience, understanding who it is that you want to attract and engage with one of these VR products, then how to use that and your own self-awareness for your operations to choose the right category and style of VR game, how to price it appropriately, and then also how to train. And so to me, that seems like a really good place to kind of wrap up today's episode. Absolutely. I think that, this is just... we got to keep feeding this beast so that way people can find the right path for them. So keep after it. It doesn't have to be the scary monster. A lot of these things are actually much more tackleable, if that's a word, to be able to do. So as always, we're going to continue to have new content coming out to you guys and really appreciate it. Any insights or things that you guys want to see us hone and focus in on and curate for you, we'll be happy to take that in and make sure that we're speaking your love language from that perspective. So stay tuned as we continue to add more and more to you in the coming weeks. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review if you would.
And those 5 stars are always appreciated. Please and thank you.
If you've got ideas for future episode topics or guests that you'd like to see, follow us on social media and send us a DM.
And as always, big shout out to Mikey Mike on the 1s and 2s running the Ultranet. Really appreciate all the work that he does behind the scenes for us here. And we will catch you on the next one, Troublemakers.
Do you remember that movie Biodome?
Yes.
Making a filter.
Making a filter. I like trains. Wait, are you doing sound effects over there?
Cuckoo choo. Are we recording? Yep. Oh, okay, cool.
Cool.
All right.
I'm Russ.
And I'm Danny.
And this is the memory.